A sports-filled weekend here for the next best bet. We had some PGA Tour golf with the Charles Schwab Challenge being back. We had some UFC fights. Brett, you and I were both on some bets here. Like I said, this is the next best bet. Brett Levy, Jake Higgins, as always, episode 51. Brett, let's start off with your golf from Thursday. How'd you do?
Hey, I'm a winner, so we'll just leave it at that. I'm a winner, right? That's all that matters. No one cares how much you walk away with. New Jersey paid me. I didn't pay New Jersey.
That's what matters. That is what matters. Because, see, I did not walk away a winner. My golf was close. Bryson DeChambeau was really close to getting the win. He fell a stroke shy of being in that playoff with between three players. He was at minus 14. Final score was minus 15. So close, but to no avail. Kepka, probably a bad play. Guy only shows up for the majors. John Rahm, he missed the cut. That was kind of surprising considering he was the best odds that I had for golf. And then UFC, I did walk away even. I had three bets that I had posted on Saturday. The best odds won for me plus 200. So even though the other two bets did not win, I walked away even from that last night.
Yeah, that's what you gotta do, Higgins. I walked away plus +0.1 units from my golf, and you know what? You just you take the +0.1 units, you smile, and you come back in a week.
Yes, and when you win, you do have to smile because a lot of times these bets are handicapped, Brett, and that's going to get us into our beginner's boulevard here. The handicap is a disadvantage imposed on a superior competitor in order to make the chances more equal.
Right, and that's why when you look at odds, you gotta kind of handicap on your own. So like minus 200 is about a 66.5% chance, 66.6% chance of winning, right? So you gotta go and sit there and you gotta be like, okay, if these teams played 10 times, are they winning 6 times or are they winning 7 times? And if you say they're winning 7 times, well then there's a 4% advantage in your handicap there.
A good example of a handicap is the UFC bet that I was leaning on last episode. I didn't end up placing anything on it. It was the Jessica I versus Cavillo card match of the UFC Fight Night on Saturday. I said it was gonna go the distance, but the line was minus 225, so I held off. However, the fight did end up going the distance, so the sportsbooks handicapped to save themselves on the more likely bet, where both of those competitors were known for going the distance in a sense. So the sports books laid it heavy on that. And even though it was the right call, I didn't necessarily like the odds, so I stayed away.
Yeah, and remember the sportsbook's placing these numbers to generate equal amount of bets on both sides. So like it's not the exact it's not their exact handicap on it so much as like they make money if you log into a sportsbook it's minus 110 and that 110 is how they make their money. That's why it's never plus 100.
Very good points there, Brett. Let's get into a little bit more of the golf, though. I don't know how much you got to watch this weekend, but I found it pretty entertaining. I mean, you got to hear some comical reactions from the players since there weren't the grandstands. Kepka dropped an F bomb when John Rahm had a nice chip. I heard Jordan Spieth today call himself Jordy when he was mad at a tee shot that he hit. And there was overall no positive coronavirus tests, so a successful event with the Charles Schwab Challenge. What did you think of the thing?
Yeah, it was very cool. I think it was a big success because it was a good field and it was also very close and you had a lot of big names at the top. I mean, even going
All
into
four
Sun,
days, all
yeah,
4 days, it was pretty competitive.
yeah, exactly. So that was great and obviously no positive tests. This is a good sign for golf.
And no positive tests should be looked at positively from around the sports world too, because if golf was able to do this successfully, the other leagues need to see what they did right in terms of housing these golfers for 4 days. And limiting the interactions so that there were no positive tests. Overall, it was a very successful weekend, though, down in Fort Worth.
Yeah, I agree. A much less successful weekend for Major League Baseball, although they did make $1 billion, so that's pretty good.
They did make $1 billion, but somehow at the same time, the St. Louis owner says that owning a baseball team is unprofitable. Not necessarily the best timing, I guess, with days later and a $1 billion contract coming out.
Yeah, I mean, we just we I feel like we've just been saying baseball stinks for about now 30 episodes, and
We're not
I,
alone, though.
we're not alone. Yeah, I mean, it's upsetting, but what's going to happen is they're going to play 50 games and the owners are going to win because they're not paying the full prorated salaries, and it's going to leave a sour taste in everyone's mouth. And then there's going to be a collective bargaining agreement coming up in about a year, maybe 2 years, somewhere in that range.
After
And
next year's the CBA.
all this sour taste in people's mouths are going to come up again, and we're going to go through the same dance in about 2 years. And I'm just like, I'm over it.
Yeah, the players decided they're not going to counter the offer that the MLB gave them, which was basically the repackaged offer that the MLB continues trying to give the players of they're going to cut the prorated salary amount, but there was going to be a varying amount of money from the broadcast pool slash the expanded playoff scenario. But the key matter to it all was the owners kept saying that the players were going to need to take another cut to their prorated salary. And I'm sorry, the owners and the players agreed to a prorated salary back in March or early April. Coming back to this table shows either lack of good faith in that first contract negotiation, in my opinion, or just a misunderstanding of how impactful this delay was going to be. But this has all just been a big charade in terms of the MLB owners trying to say they don't want to lose money, they don't want to have a baseball season if they're going to lose money. Well, they're going to lose money with or without a baseball season, and by holding out this long, they've showed they're fine in losing some aspect of money because this could have been settled a month or two ago, but they're not doing it. They are trying to save their ass. They are trying to limit their losses, and it is a short term, short sighted monetary problem that is holding back the MLB from starting. It's selfish.
Yeah, I mean, there's tons of issues going on. I mean, well, for starters, I'm going to go back to where you started with this, and I think going back in March, I don't know if they fully expected like no fans. Like, it was March, it was early in the process. If you remember, they were like playing spring training games with fans, and the next day they just stopped. There was no
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, we're gonna like the Big East tournament tipped off a game without fans. Like Major League Baseball had fans in the stands and then no games. So they didn't know. But I just think baseball is they're not in a good spot right now. It's ugly because it's so public, and it's disappointing, but at the end of the day, I think Manfred's going to put his force his 50 games, and I'm sure some amount of the players will show up and some won't, but I'm sure a large majority will, and you're going to have an baseball season.
It is just very frustrating from the fan perspective
Yes.
because the MLB had the chance to be the lone sport on the market. They had the chance to be back, to be able to do something where they were the first, and they were honestly expected to be the first sports league back at some capacity because of where this fell in terms of their season starting. But instead, it has turned into this myriad of issues beyond the playing field, beyond what this is actually supposed to be about of the health and safety of the players, it has turned into a monetary issue, which is a travesty to everything that is going on outside of sports right now, that it is money that is holding this back, not the health and safety concerns for the players.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, it's disheartening baseball, but we're now starting to see some uncertainty in the NBA as well. So, at least these concerns seem to be involved with like real life things, not so much the money.
Yes, there was a conference call between, I want to say it was about 20 something NBA players and player reps for the Players Association. And Kyrie's name came up after this phone call because he apparently made some points regarding him being injured, and if he wanted to go down and support the team, would his shoulder injury, since he is sidelined, would he be added to the Nets 35 roster total that there would be or something? And then he also brought up concerns about the social justice issues that are going on and just players' concerns in general of what if they didn't want to necessarily take the risk of going down to Orlando right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think Kyrie has every right to speak. I don't necessarily believe that he will make his salary if he skips out on going down to Orlando, but like I'm not going to kill him if he wants to skip for both health and Black Lives Matter reasons. Like those are two legitimate reasons, and like if anyone wants to skip for either of those, that's great. He's not saying they're not paying him his money. He's simply saying this cause is more important to me than going to Orlando and sitting on a bench while I'm injured.
And in terms of the health and safety purposes, Orlando has seen an increase recently or a spike in coronavirus cases. Now, local officials say they're not quite concerned yet, but they're monitoring the numbers closely. I saw an article that came out today that said in one of the counties in that area, hospital bed usage is up to as high as 80%. So this is a problem that is starting to creep back up in Florida potentially as well, so it is smart to keep an eye on that. But Austin Rivers made a fantastic point, or released just a fantastic comment in terms of what players could do if they want to support the Black Lives Matter movement or they want to support the nurses and people on the front lines fighting the coronavirus in terms of using their salary that they would earn from this NBA playoff scenario and donate and highlight these specific causes that they're finding important. And he obviously said not all players would be in a position to be able to do that with their salaries, but he said that would be a positive way to go about this potentially.
Yeah, I mean Garrett Temple, one of Kyrie's teammates, said that something very similar. I don't have the exact quote in front of me, but basically said like, you being on national TV every day is a great way to get your message out. And I agree with that. Like, there's I agree with all everyone's going to have slightly different opinions on this, but I think if Kyrie believes like him protesting in New Jersey or New York City is more important than him sitting at the bench in Orlando, that's great. Like I'm glad he feels that way. If Austin Rivers feels like the best way for me to help is to donate the money, great. I hope Kyrie donates some money too. But like people are trying to do the right thing. I think they're voicing their concerns, and this was always going to happen. Like it wasn't going to be like smooth sailing, but I still think the NBA is more or less on the fast track here.
The highlighting of the issues, what you just said, reminds me of after Eric Garner's death, when the NBA wore the I Can't Breathe shirts, it elevated the platform in a sense. I mean, it got Laura Ingraham on Fox News to say shut up and dribble. It brought a lot of attention to the issues, positive or negative in a sense. But I actually found this very interesting. Patrick Beverley had a very simple take on what's going to happen with the NBA. He basically said, if LeBron James plays, we're all going to go down there and play.
I mean, I don't know. Like, that's a funny quote. I don't know if that's really true, but like, one of his teammates, Dwight Howard's kind of on Kyrie's side, so we'll see
Hmm.
how it plays out.
We will. The NHL, we're not hearing a lot of concerns from the players or the league in terms of actually happening, but there are a little bit of concerns in getting players over because of their visas. The international players, typically their work visas end sometime in June on the last day of the NHL season. And so the NHL is advising these players to make it back to the States by June 24th to make sure that they can safely enter America properly. Pretty interesting problem to be dealing with.
Yeah, but I'm guessing there's multiple people working on this for each individual player. Like, you've got the player's agent working on this, you've got someone in the team's front office working on this, and you've probably got the player slightly invested in in if he'll be able to get back. So you've probably got three people working to get this taken care of. I don't expect it to be a huge issue, but it is an interesting concern for sure.
I mean, there for just an example, the rookie goalie for the Capitals. We talked about a goalie coming into the NHL named Ilya. This is a different Ilya though, Ilya Samsonov. His visa has apparently already expired, so his team is already working with him to try to get him back into the country right now. So this is a problem that's already creeping up for some players.
Yeah, no, I understand that. What I'm saying is it'll get solved.
Yes, it will. I agree. I agree. It will get solved.
uh, but what I'm more interested in is how correct I was about the hub cities.
Not only were you correct with your guess about Vegas, but it looks like you're going to have a lot of attention on Vegas, Brett, because that's where the East is going to go play. So your Rangers, the Islanders, the Flyers, Boston Bruins, all of them are going to Las Vegas. Most likely. They're going to officially announce the hub cities on June 22nd, but all the leaks, there's multiple sources kind of confirming that Vegas is going to happen. It's the other hub city that's still kind of got rumors swirling around it.
But I was saying Toronto, and rumor has it Toronto.
Hey, what do you know? One in Canada, one in America, just like we were talking about there. And Brett, you were spot on with your cities, Vegas and Toronto. Good for you.
Yeah, I didn't know anything, but I knew a little bit.
Maybe we should have placed a bet on that one because you won.
I would have made out better than my golf.
I'm excited to see some NHL. I saw Phase 2 is supposed to start on July 10th, I believe, is when they announced Phase 2 is expected to start. But overall, it seems like the NHL is consistently starting to move forward. They're not having these rumors or inconveniences kind of pop up that's delaying the season or causing uncertainty.
No, NHL again moving forward. They've kind of been quiet, but we'll see what happens at their next announcement with the hub cities, and we'll see what happens with getting all these guys back into their. I mean, not just the United States, but Canada as well, or wherever their teams are located.
It'll be very important as these players are coming back too, because that'll paint a better picture of the feasibility of this playoff scenario happening. For example, there was a Boston Bruins player that came to the facility to begin his workouts, get there for phase two, and he ended up testing positive for coronavirus. They didn't release a name, but he has tested positive. He's also tested negative in two subsequent tests after quarantining in place. So that is positive to know. But as these players get to their facilities, we're going to get a clearer picture of what the coronavirus really looks like in the NHL.
Yeah, that's a good point. And speaking of which, Ohio State players were asked to sign waivers before heading back to their optional, I put that in quotes, workouts. I found this super interesting. Virus risk waivers, and their parents were also asked to sign it. So just very odd.
Now, when I first saw this story and I heard coronavirus risk waivers, I thought of the President Trump rally that he was holding, where he was apparently going to be having uh, attendees sign a risk waiver that waived liability from the President Trump campaign so that you basically couldn't sue the campaign. That's where I thought this was, but that's actually not what this waiver is about. These players are signing a waiver basically committing to taking this seriously, getting tested regularly, social distancing, and limiting their interactions outside of the athletic facilities in a sense. So I think it is a very smart call by Ohio State to kind of set up a contract to ensure all of this, but I'll be very interested to see what the fallout's going to be from it.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it is to to do what you're saying in a sense of make sure everyone's held accountable. But I think the other big part of it is to kind of put out there, hey, you're coming to practice, you're going to be tackling your teammates. Like, there's risk involved. You're going to be in the locker room with your teammates. There's risk involved. Sharing a training room with your teammates. There's risk involved. Probably a meal room as well. Like, there's just all these things that you're sharing in close quarters, and um, they're trying to take some of that risk away. And
And Brett, I don't know if you saw this, but Booger McFarland actually put out kind of a statement about what he thinks about the coronavirus in football. And he mentioned the physicality of football compared to some of the other sports, like maybe baseball or golf or something, where you are constantly tackling, hitting, exchanging bodily fluids around each other, just from sweat and spit and blood that happens on the football field. And he was mentioning the NFL, he understands you have your own brand, your own company in a sense. You have to do what's best for you. But 17, 18, 19-year-old kids that are in a college football scenario, he didn't seem so confident of this necessarily being the right choice for these kids because it's a big risk in a sense.
yeah, I mean that's another thing going on in the NBA right now. They want to get basically insurance for I'm basically like a life threatening insurance basically. I don't know exactly
Like a
what their
life
term.
insurance policy.
Yeah, but for if they get the virus basically.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I th- I think these schools are in a really tough spot because there are certain coaches that are like, yeah, we should be back, like whatever. And then there are certain schools like UCLA where California's been like, yeah, we're not even going to have students back for fall semesters. So, like, it's all over the map.
It's also a lot harder because of the economic impact that some of these sports have on their universities. Like it is just actually impractical for some schools to be able to run their semesters if they don't have their profitable sports going. It just brings in that much revenue in a sense. So there is a lot more to look at in the college aspect in terms of how young these players are, um, whether or not kids are going to even be on campus, and then the national aspect of, well, in the Pac 12, what if Oregon and Nevada and Arizona and Washington they're playing, but California they can't go to campus. So like it's going to create some interesting scenarios for sure. And I think it's going to be interesting to keep our eye on as it gets closer to these training camp facilities start dates.
Yeah, definitely something to keep our eye on. And speaking of big time college programs, Penn State once upon a time had a quarterback named Christian Hackenberg. And now he's attempting to come back in his pro sports career as a pitcher. So I thought that was interesting and I wanted to bring it up on a podcast. So here's my opportunity.
Now, Christian Hackenberg, you are familiar with him from also being a Jet, weren't you, Brett?
I drank a lot during those years, so I blacked that out.
Well, he's not the first football player to go to baseball necessarily. Tim Tebow, we've seen
Not the
recently
first
do
Jets
it.
quarterback.
uh, Drew Hansen, Tom Brady's old quarterback, with him in Michigan. He played baseball for a little bit before trying to sign with the Cowboys. And then there's obviously Bo Jackson, Deion Sanders, who did it both at the same time. So there is a translation between football and baseball, especially when probably you're a quarterback and you have the arm strength compared to maybe a other position player for football. But I think it'll be interesting to see. Did you notice what organization he's going to be a part of?
No, he just signed with an agent. I'm sure he's going to be working there. Higgins, I'm not sure if you're aware. There's no baseball right now.
Oh yeah, you're right. There's no baseball. Maybe he should go to South Korea. Maybe he should go to
He
South
should
Korea.
definitely, or Chinese Taipei.
Well, we will keep an eye on where Christian Hackenberg goes, and if we find that out, we'll let you know. But it's all going to be up in the air with the baseball season in limbo and in jeopardy, to be honest. Make sure to follow us on social media, by the way. I posted my UFC picks on Saturday on our social media at NBB Pod on Twitter, at Next Best Bet on Instagram, and the Next Best Bet Facebook page. And we're going to start putting out more content right now. For example, Brett and we did some video with this episode that we're going to try to cut up for you guys and produce some extra side content from as well. So this has been episode 51 of the Next Best Bet. Smile, Brett. You're on camera. Come on now. For Brett, I'm Jake. We'll talk to you guys again on Thursday.